I just recently had a conversation with fellow finance YouTuber Amit Kukreja, where although he's very famous in the Palantir community, he's really starting to become a real advocate for Robinhood stock. We covered a lot of great topics in this video, mainly around Robinhood, obviously, but also diving into a couple of his opinions on crypto, as well as a recent private equity investment that he just recently placed, which is also very exciting in my opinion. But without wasting any more of your time, I'll let you get to the juicy details. Here's my conversation with Amit.
What's up, man?
Good to see you. So, just a little bit of history for people that are listening. You've been championing Robinhood since what price?
Well, you and me started talking about it in November 2022. So I believe that was about $7. That was when we started going back and forth around Robinhood, SoFi, and UI and all that type of stuff on the product.
Yeah. And so the stock has kind of had to double for me to see the light.
Which is fair, dude, because they were losing money. I mean, it's fair. There was definitely a bear thesis. That was 100% true.
Yeah, I mean, in those last two quarters, I went from a sell rating to then, 2 quarters ago, I was like, oh, well, you know what? I'd probably, I could see myself with a position. I never pulled the trigger. And then that was kind of like a hold. And now I'm like, oh, you know what? I might be looking for an opportunity to buy. Markets are coming back. Crypto is coming back. And they are taking market share, like Vlad Tenev said, from every single one of their competitors. And whenever you hear statistics like that, they obviously have something that differs from everyone else. But what is that? Like, what's that exact special sauce?
In the product itself?
Sure. Or in their marketing, or you tell me. Why are they winning?
Well, I think like if people follow me on Twitter, or really any people in America that use Twitter and that are in the financial space, 1 out of every at least 50 tweets that account posts will be some type of screenshot from Robinhood, whether it's the biggest accounts or people that are just getting started, because there was something unique about using the product, even if you're not investing in it, just to track tickers. And I think the tangible answer to your question is the load time on the app. Like it takes 0.2 milliseconds to load up. And so you're already in. And as soon as you're already in, and I've used other things like SoFi Public, they just take a little bit longer. And so it's harder. SoFi takes a lot longer to get into this thing. And I was trying to be humble about it, but SoFi takes still a lot longer. It's been a year now. Yeah. And but again, SoFi is just not as focused on that. Robinhood is. So they've hyper optimized it. I've listened to Vlad in many interviews over the past couple of weeks as I've kind of doubled down on my position. And since 2016, in his earliest interviews, he said he's a product guy. This is a guy who studied math and engineering at Stanford. His core thesis has been product, user experience. And they built that into the product. I also think there's something between the APIs and the backend infrastructure they use that makes it a smooth, seamless experience. And so for anyone who uses it, they use it to track tickers. They tweet out their screenshots. It's an easy to use product. And then when it comes to buying and selling, it's also very simple. Yes, you don't get the best price you could get from like a Fidelity or TD Ameritrade, but it works really well for the average person. So I think that's been really well. And then in terms of marketing, the number one reason the company has grown is because they gave a 1% match. So they brought in $1 billion of brokerage transfers and they paid $11 million. And that $11 million, I think, is the smartest $11 million they could have ever spent, because there were people I personally know that were putting in tens and tens of millions of dollars from Schwab and Fidelity onto Robinhood. And they're starting to buy stuff. And now they like the experience. Then they transfer their Roth and their IRA and their 401k. They get 3% match. I think all of that basically exploded their net deposits, which is what we saw last quarter. And it's probably just going to keep growing now.
Yeah. I mean, they even said, I brought up the quote because I think it was the most important part of their last quarter's earnings call. They said, one, during that match thing that they did last quarter, the average transfer that was coming in was over $100,000.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean everyone is over 6 figures coming over, but those 10 million plus accounts are really driving a lot of that growth. So another thing that they said is that their net inflows for the first half of Q1 was larger than their entire inflows for Q4, the entirety.
Correct.
And now you're seeing even stronger momentum on the second half of Q1, where crypto is booming, markets are roaring, and potentially they're going to smash this upcoming earnings. What do you think about just the next quarter coming up?
I think the stock, in my opinion, is personally undervalued given what's going to happen next quarter, as you said. Here's a stat that I think people will really sort of get some context on. In Q2 2021, Robinhood did like $550 million of revenue and $233 million. So almost half of that was just crypto. Last quarter, or 2 quarters ago, they did $25 million off of crypto. That's just crypto transaction fees. The last quarter, so Q3, they did 25 million. Q4, which is the most recent quarter, they did 43 million. So that's up about 70% quarter over quarter, but it's still down 80% from that Q2 233 million number I just said in 2021, which means they have a long way to grow just to get back to that level. And so the crypto volumes we're seeing right now, with Bitcoin going from 50 to 64,000, the halving event's coming up. If people are familiar with the Bitcoin thesis, historically, if you look at the charts, that tends to quadruple over the next 12 months after that halving happens. Sure. And so a lot of that trading activity is going to happen. And my bet is that Robinhood is going to be one of about 4 to 5 platforms on the planet that are really going to encapsulate a lot of people to come trade on their platform, which means crypto notional trading volumes are going to be up. Crypto, they make dollars on. Stocks, they make pennies on. Payment for order flow is not that great of a business model, but crypto is a great business model in terms of transaction revenues. That's why I think Coinbase has gone up about 6x in the past year.
Sure.
And that means Q1, I think, is going to crush. Deposits were $3.8 billion in January. They did $4.6 billion in all of Q4, which means next quarter are probably going to get to that $4 or $5 billion number per month, which means we could see closer to $9 to $10 billion in deposits in one quarter. They're going to use a lot of that money to get interest income. They're going to use a lot of that money to do R&D. I mean, there's just so many upcoming bullish catalysts. And then March 26th, they're probably unveiling a credit card, which is going to be a whole new stream of income. And so I don't see how a company valued at $14 billion, you take off $6 billion for cash, they're worth $8 billion, growing 37% year over year, 44% year over year net deposit growth. I think that's worth more than $8 billion. And so I think the street will accept that as well.
So I think that, acquiring X1, turning it around into Robinhood's own card, it's all but 100% confirmed that it's the credit card, right? I think Ben Baller, if you know that is the chain maker, just made a Robinhood chain. It was literally a credit card for their March 26th event.
I'll give you something even easier. We just Command F inspected their homepage and it said credit card. So
yeah, like credit card event or something.
Yep,
like that.
Yep, basically.
Yeah, so it's definitely the credit card release. My question is, although there's a ton of interchange fees that can happen with credit cards, you're also adding on quite a lot of risk whenever bringing on something like credit cards. Historically, actually, SoFi has not done well on their credit cards. They lose more than they make. Do you think that this is a possibility for Robinhood? I mean, even Anthony Noto was quite. I don't know if you saw that interview with Cathie Wood, but he said, Robinhood better stay in their lane. They might go a little bit too quick.
Yeah.
So
it's very interesting. I think that the thing about Robinhood that I don't ever doubt is the product exceptionalism and speed and veracity these guys have. And so first, let's talk about speed. These guys were a trading app, a meme stock frenzy trading app for the better part of 2 years until September 2023. It didn't happen in 2022, 2021, where they introduced retirement. So it took them a good 2 years to feel comfortable enough to build out retirement. What does that product look like? How are they going to really work with getting these Roth IRAs? And then they unveiled it on the product, and now that has about 1.4 billion assets under custody. I think Vlad has been thinking about credit for a while. I don't think this happened out of nowhere. And I think with the gold membership revenue they're getting, about $5 a month, and they added, I think 60,000 gold members in January, 1.42 million in total. They're going to give
what's the total that they're making on the gold? It's something like 80 million a year now, I think is what it is.
Yeah, round about 80 million. And that's January's gold subscriber numbers grew 3x the average monthly numbers. And that's just going to keep going up and up and up. Because once you get on the app for $5 a month to get 5% APY, it makes a lot of sense. So when people sign up for gold, that revenue, I think, is going to be important for Robinhood. But what I think is going to happen is they're going to either find a way to manipulate that revenue or do something with that gold membership to be able to not get into traditional credit risks that some of these other companies have gotten into. I don't know what that would look like. But I do think because it's gold, I mean, even the advertising for this whole thing is they're calling it the new gold standard. You're going to have to be a gold member, and they're going to do something with credit that hopefully mitigates their risk and, optimizes for people that are paying that extra $5 a month. What is that? I don't know. And we'll see March 26th what Vlad has to say.
Who knows? It could be prepaid cards for all I know, and they just completely mitigate the risk. And I mean, who knows? But one thing that I think is exciting is this, how successful those two products that we just talked about were, the retirement and the gold, subscriptions. Because I was talking about this yesterday, but it kind of completely adds a floor to Robinhood's earnings that kind of adds a lot of stability. Where before, whenever they were just trading equities and crypto, uh, it was just a matter of what the market was doing was how much they were going to make. And so
Correct.
during real crypto winters and people weren't trading as many options, their revenue just completely hit the floor. Now with this, $5 a month and in retirement accounts, you have these very sticky customers that add this layer of essentially monthly reoccurring revenue. And so I'm really starting to rethink how I'm looking at this company, because that gold membership is just cheap enough where it feels like a Costco subscription. No one complains about $5 a month. It goes by undetected, but yet because you're spending $5 a month, you choose to use more and more of their services to get it like worth your money, even though it's only $5 a month. So you end up choosing Costco more. You choose Robinhood more,
Yeah.
just over $5, and that's a huge deal for Robinhood.
I think Vlad realized that, like, all right, so how do we make this into a SaaS? Because that's the
Mhm.
golden business model, right? You just build something and then people just pay every month or pay every year, and they don't even care that they're paying. They're just paying for it and they'll use it occasionally. I mean, that is one of the best business models ever. And with Hood, payment for order flow, I mean, trading on commission was, if they made it really cheap, like let's say they cost like 5 cents a trade or something, it would just psychologically be annoying to people. But it's not like they're making that much more than 5 cents a trade on payment for order flow. I mean, they're making fractions of pennies on all these orders, which is why when I look at their crypto revenue, I think last quarter it's like, or sorry, their equities revenue was like 25-30 million. It's not a lot, and they had a lot of trading volume. So
Mm.
you need absurd amounts of trading volume for a payment for order flow to really work. So I agree with you, finding some type of floor that is different, and I think they have a bunch of other sort of products they're working on that are adding to the subscription base, or maybe they get that $5 to turn to $7. Even one of the analysts on the last call, he was like, why is this so cheap?
Yeah.
And Vlad was just like, look, our mission is to like make this stuff really, I mean, you can get an 8% interest on margin at
Mm.
Robinhood, where most people charge like 15-20% just by paying $5 a month. So for them, it's really about, let's just get people hooked on to the thing to never leave. And eventually, like Spotify, they'll pay $20 a month for music because all their playlists are there at one point.
Yeah, I don't even think that they're going to increase the price. I think that they're just going to try to get every single retail trader to use the platform rather than anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm so serious. This retirement thing completely changes my opinion. And they just rolled out this new product for contract workers. They started with GoPuff, Grubhub, and TaskRabbit to go out and actually allow those people to set up a Robinhood account through those businesses. So then
Right.
you can take some of your income through these gig economy jobs and start, setting some aside for retirement. So what do you think about that? How big of an opportunity is this new product line that just came out of nowhere?
Yeah, I was really surprised at that. It's so funny because the day before they announced it, I had someone DM me on Twitter. TaskRabbit said big announcement tomorrow, and then Robin had put the rolling
Mm.
eyes emojis, and he was like, "What do you think this is?" And I was like, "Dude, TaskRabbit and Robinhood." I was like, "What the hell are these guys doing together?" And then we see the announcement that it's like, hey, if you're a 1099 contractor, if you drive for Grubhub or you do these random tasks
Yeah.
and you want to kind of control your schedule and you don't have an employer and that's kind of your primary business, um, you need to save for retirement. Everyone knows retirement is important. And so many people are not even in the markets, much less in having a retirement savings account, that if you could do it in a user-friendly way, that is just like your sort of pseudo employer just onboarding you here and you get a match. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So I think that will increase user signups. I think that will increase monthly active users. Those accounts may not be the biggest well-funded accounts, but at least those accounts will be on the platform. And to be honest, if that money's just there, Robinhood has their cash sweep product, which they're able to take
Yeah.
that money and just generate interest off of it. So for them, it's just increasing assets under custody. And so you got the crypto stuff that's booming and people wanting to get on Robinhood and put their money in so they could buy crypto. Then you've got equities, and interest rates aren't even down yet. So when interest rates come down, that might be kind of crazy. And then you've got all these new 1099 contractors that will start to join the platform, and Robinhood can collaborate with more companies. It really forced me to upgrade my price target. And it made me go from being less conservative to a bit more optimistic, just because you can't ignore a lot of that stuff happening.
Well, also in the latest earnings call, they talked about how they're going to be shifting from, trying to worry about their expenses to shifting to new growth this year.
Yeah.
Which is
Yep.
also really exciting because Robinhood in growth mode was when the stock was doing great. Like that's when the company was really roaring. So I'm gonna be excited to see how they shift their focus. I wanted to touch on, what do you think? Because Vlad Tenev has already tweeted that more companies are going to be coming onto this platform. I think
Mhm.
that this is like way bigger than people are even saying. If there was a company on the stock market today that said, "Hey, we help with gig economy and creator economy retirement accounts," that would be its own stock. You know, just
Mm. I
like
see what you're saying. Right.
it's an entire market. They created a market and they're going to dominate it. Like, one thing, Uber and Lyft have been in hot water politically because they weren't helping out with retirement or pension funds or these sorts of things.
Yep.
And so now this kind of gets them out of that to say, hey, we are offering services to our drivers to allow them. And we send them reminders and these sorts of things. Make sure you try to save for retirement, yada yada yada. And yet Robinhood is the largest benefactor of that change if they
It's
can completely surround this market.
it's really interesting. Even I haven't thought about it as deeply as kind of you're thinking about it. So your argument is like Uber, which is under a lot of political turmoil for just using these drivers as just like basically props to be able to generate more revenue for them.
Mm.
If they actually started to care about their financial well-being, which they theoretically should because they're using their Uber platform, and they don't have to have any of the responsibility other than sending some push notifications and doing a partnership with Robinhood, and Robinhood gets access to, I don't know, 20, 30 million drivers that potentially don't have a savings account to just sign up with Robinhood. And even if they do, they could start another one and get a match or roll yours over and get another match. Yeah, I think that's a market they can dominate because there's not many people doing that as you're saying that right now. I
And
don't,
and
I don't think
I
there are.
bet you this gets to a place where politicians and these sorts of things end up pushing for Uber and Lyft to pay for the a larger match that goes through Robinhood.
Ah,
So
yeah,
you work for Robinhood instead of Lyft, and you're going to get a 4% match through uh, Robinhood rather than what you would get somewhere else.
right.
And yeah, I look at this as a new area, and I don't even see this stopping at, like, why isn't this at Etsy? Why isn't this at YouTube? Like
For
who is
creators, right? Because
carrying,
you and I are YouTubers, right? And we would benefit from a product like that. You're right.
man, because these are no one is taking care. I mean, we're in finance YouTube, so it's a little bit different, but no one is taking care of the long-term financial future of these sort of creators that are making good money, potentially livable money. And that's sort of the part that's coming in now, is like that middle class of creators
Right.
that don't have retirement accounts but are just making enough to have a house and kids and all these things. I think that this is huge.
I think you're right. I haven't even thought about it that deep. I mean, I thought about it as more users, which is great, but I think you're talking about how can they monopolize an entire industry that has politically been decimated because they're just using people for money, but now they can act as if they care about their financial well-being, and then Robinhood benefits from all those juicy deposits.
Yeah.
And those people get a user-friendly interface they can use to manage their own money without just investing it in an index as well.
And the craziest part is the size and scale of the clients that they've already landed.
Yeah.
Like, if they talked about having this product come out, I would be, sort of excited, but they didn't talk about it at all. They just launched it, and they launched it like fully developed and with customers already.
And
More to
that's the
come.
thing about them. They launch. Like, this company launches, dude. They,
Yeah.
they put their stuff out there. And I know in 2022, revenue fell off a cliff because the market fell off. But as you said, now that they're back in growth mode and they're going to try to capitalize on this stuff. I mean, the Ethereum partnerships they're doing now that are coming
Yeah.
left and right. I agree with you. This is the time to launch. And GoPuff and Grubhub and TaskRabbit are big. They're not
Yeah.
small companies.
Yeah.
So
So where do you see this stock going now? It's ran up so much. I think it's what, 1680 right now at the end of the close on Friday.
1650. Yeah.
1650.
Yep.
Where do you see this going?
I said 18 end of year was like my target, and I bought in around $9. So I was like, all right, if I get a double, that would be pretty cool. And really, I said maybe 16, and then I revised it to 18. Now that I'm seeing what's happening with crypto, I think 25 is my price target by the end of this year. Maybe that happens, maybe that doesn't. But to me, it makes sense in the content. And the thing about this is it makes sense on some of the numbers I've looked at, but it also doesn't need to make sense. There is an altcoin called WIF, Dog Whiff Hat. WIF.
Yeah.
This thing, Tanner, went from $100,000 in market cap to $1 billion in 4 months, starting in November. It's not even, you can't even buy it on Coinbase. And when you can buy it on Coinbase, that's probably when it's the top. But like
Yeah.
this is and Doge. I mean, we didn't even talk about that. Dogecoin is primarily bought on Robinhood. That's up 67% this week. So
Wow.
like to me now, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, the stock IPO'd at 38. It was not worth 38 when it IPO'd. I mean, it was because we were on the downtrend from they IPO. They got that IPO right before the bubble popped, so it
Yeah.
wasn't worth that. It spiked to 75. Was never worth that. Now they're gap profitable. My biggest concern, and the reason I didn't even double down heavier before the Q4 earnings, is because I was afraid if they're not gap profitable, the street's going to be like, here's another company just using all this money for customer acquisition. They can't make a profit. Somehow they inched out a profit. The crypto revenues are going to go up dramatically. If interest rates get cut, that's going to help stocks as well. And then retirement is going to be growing with all these users, and they're expanding to the United Kingdom. And in the EU, they're allowed to trade any crypto. The totalitarian SEC does not allow people to trade Solana in the United States. That's the whole Coinbase lawsuit. But so Robinhood had to delist it. If Robinhood had Solana or some of these other alternative coins, they would be even making more revenue. So in the EU, they're allowed to list those coins, and that's going to generate revenue. So I think 25 is reasonable by the end of the year. I really think it's possible, and now we'll just see, if it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think 18's a little low considering the momentum that crypto has.
Yeah.
'Cause that's the thing with brokerages. It's not like linear growth like SoFi is going to
Mhm.
see with, hovering around 30% growth or something like this. Like Robinhood can double their revenue with a strong market. If, AI continues to rip, retail traders will continue to make, large bets.
Yeah, and the goal is when the market goes bearish the next time, if you have products like gold, like
Exactly.
the other thing,
Retirement.
retirement. Yeah, exactly. That can establish, momentum even when the market's not hot. That's where the business maybe gets more sustainable. And I think Vlad understands that really well. And hopefully that happens over the next 5 years.
So, what are your opinions on Vlad? Because I'm real mixed bag with him. I would be heavy in this company if there was not different management. I like Vlad Tenev as a product officer. I didn't like his stock compensation package of like 900 million on the size of this company. It was just insane. But what are your thoughts on this the CEO?
So I think a couple things. I think he recognized that the SBC was insane, and so him and Beju Bot, the co-founders, they canceled
Mhm.
their founder award SBC that was about $451 million. They took off the table, so their SBC has dramatically normalized. And Robinhood bought back 55 million shares for $10.96 back in September. So they spent 600 million bucks and basically took off 5% of the outstanding shares in the market. So I think they, have kind of recognized the need to be fiscally responsible, and they got gap profitable. So to me, you put all three of those things together. I think Vlad, from a financial standpoint, understands, how to hopefully take care of shareholders from that perspective. Now, as a person, I spent a lot of time over the past 2 months understanding what happened during GameStop, because I remember it in 2021, but I didn't really remember it. So I watched Dumb Money. I looked at all the interviews. I watched the Roaring Kitty live streams again, and I was trying to be like, what actually happened? Vlad messed up. He absolutely messed up. The buy button thing was atrocious. It was not a good thing to do. Every time I listened to his explanation for it, it came down to him basically saying they didn't have a liquidity issue, but him not explaining what the issue was if it wasn't a liquidity issue. So it just sounded like it was bad PR. And honestly, I can't blame him. I mean, the whole world was staring at this guy, and he just became a public CEO, or almost a public CEO, within like a year, right? So and he's a math major. He's not like an outgoing guy that wants to be on podcasts and stuff. So I can understand why the communication wasn't the best, but I think the product has been so phenomenal, and they've done so much work to try to restore the trust that users have with just how they built the product, that I think people have turned a corner with him. Now, the far majority of financial Twitter still hates his guts, and every time I tweet about him, there's 17 comments saying, how could you trust this guy? But to me, I'm like, look, I didn't get screwed, and I'm sorry if you did get screwed, but the world moves on. Things have to change, and the guy apologized for it. They moved on. The company's infrastructure is built to handle the next major surge in traffic, and now we just have to, let him operate.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I never was in any of those forensic meme stocks either, so I never felt that way about Vlad. I was just more mainly based on you know some of the decisions, even opposed to just that one time, because I'm pretty sure didn't like TD, and I think there was a couple different brokerages that also closed their the buy buttons at the time, but Robinhood seemed to have taken like all the flack because they were really retail based.
Well, all the people that were buying GameStop was on Robinhood. It wasn't on
Yeah.
TD Ameritrade, right? So, yeah, I mean, people got screwed. Like they got screwed. They should have sold when the buy button was closed. But it's like it's the age old narrative of a movement that is going up against the machine, which is the hedge funds, that comes against an obstacle, and that obstacle potentially is perceived as a tool of the machine. And so you're gonna have people that just hate that tool for a long time. But people who even hate it still use the damn thing because the product's just that good. So, yeah.
Let's talk about what Robinhood's trading or benefiting from. I want your opinions on Bitcoin, Ethereum. What did you say? Wolf coin, Whiff coin?
Yeah, I mean, so Bitcoin's going to do good numbers for them. So is Ethereum. Wolf is only in Europe. In general, in the EU, there's a lot more cryptocurrencies. So all
I
those.
don't mean necessarily for Robinhood. I'm just like saying, like, what are your opinion? Where do you think Bitcoin's going? Where do you think Ethereum's going?
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. So in 2022, if people watch some of my content, I was much more bearish on the entire concept of crypto. And two things kind of changed my opinion. Well, three things. Number one, I binged a lot of Michael Saylor. Sorry, so that really helped me sort of understanding the argument. Number two, I actually procured products and services from someone in Nigeria. All the comments are going to say it's a Nigerian prince, but it's not a Nigerian prince. And he wanted to get paid in Bitcoin. And I was like, "Do you have PayPal?" He was like, "We don't have PayPal in this country." And I was like, "All right, so I got to do something that's like Bitcoin." And then Robinhood was very easy to send the Bitcoin, and I actually got a service. So I saw the utility. And then number three, I realized, and I think this is kind of this is the part of getting older. Like I saw the price go up of Bitcoin, and everyone who's watching this is like, "Oh, Amit saw the price go up, his mind changed." But I started going a deeper layer. Why did the price go up? And I started realizing the same realization I had from when I was a Marxist back in 2015, and I went to college and I became more libertarian. I started realizing the thing is going up because it's scarce. And the thing that's not scarce is the 7 trillion we printed in 2022 that we continue to print, that in the next 100 days, our debt's going to go in the United States from 34 to 35 trillion. And so that hit for me probably around November-ish of 2023. And it became very apparent that's like, you cannot be ideological about this anymore. If something has a fixed amount of supply and there's an outsized level of demand that is chasing it, for whatever reason they're chasing it, they believe that that's scarcity. And maybe they're just chasing it for the pure scarcity, which isn't the craziest concept in the world. Maybe that is valuable, even if you can't use it at a McDonald's versus like your credit card. And so that totally changed my perspective. And then I just was like, all right, so what is the best option here to get exposure to this? And Robinhood is one of those main
Sure.
options for me.
Yeah, no, I think I was even talking with Jesse Dow the other day, and it was surprising to me how much he looked at Robinhood less of just a brokerage and more as just a proxy for as like a crypto play.
Yeah, yeah.
Which for me, most times I'm buying companies, I'm buying them based on their own products and management and growth potential. But the more you get into those options and trading plays, you really have to understand how these stocks are correlated. So, yeah, it's very interesting looking at it that way.
Well, here's the thing. If you buy Bitcoin at 60,000, I think Bitcoin, US price targets, I think 100,000 is very possible. Let's say it gets to 120 or something. If it might just quadruple based on the chart of the halving event and all the historical price actions. But even if that happens, let's say it goes to 120, you 2x. There are options you can do on Robinhood or on some of these crypto plays that can go 7, 8x, because Bitcoin going 2x means so much more momentum for the underlying asset that is Robinhood. So that's where it's more exciting for me from a just pure money perspective. But obviously storing your value in Bitcoin is also attractive versus fiat dollars.
Yeah, I guess it's dependent on what you want out of it, right? As an investment, or if you're looking at it like from Michael Saylor's point of just like, I'm trying to, buy a real store of value here. Yeah, I had a very similar feeling for you. The reason why out of all the crypto that I hold, I'm Solana at the highest right now. And it's because I had to pay someone that was in Morocco. And US dollar or USDC, the Circle stablecoin, and I paid it through the Solana network. I paid like less than a penny to transact hundreds of dollars, and I was like, Western Union is done. Like,
Yeah.
All these remittance companies are done if these payment providers can offer, or cryptocurrency can offer such a cheap way to send money globally.
I agree. Even PayPal charges more, right? So it's just like, all right.
Yeah.
Cheaper.
Yeah. So we have about 1 minute or so left. I want your opinion on your latest investment.
So for those that haven't heard, I made an investment in Figure.ai, and I got an allocation from a very, very good friend of mine who's becoming a mentor in their Series B with NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Intel. Figure.ai is a humanoid robotics company. The company is less than 2 years old, and they're at a $2.6 billion valuation. The founder, CEO, Brett Adcock, absolute legend. He sold previous company for $100 million, took another company public at $2.5 billion, Archer Aviation. And he wanted to build a robotics company. And I got presented the opportunity in late January. I watched a lot of interviews of the guy, and by mid-February, I made the investment. My core selling point was, and this is, I guess, very bullish on Tesla as well, is that global GDP in terms of a labor force is about 100 trillion. Half of that is kind of the TAM for these robotics companies. And the more I started listening to Brett and then listening to Elon talk about Optimus and their ideas, it was never about automating workers or replacing people. It was about the fact that there was a population crisis and there was a labor crisis in particular jobs that people just don't want to do. There's massive churn, and humans kind of aren't meant to work 40 years in certain factories and do backbreaking work. So from that perspective, humanoid robotics made a lot of sense. Now the question then becomes, all right, yes, a robot is super cool and maybe could transform the world, but how does that even happen? And I think the revolution with AI training models and LLMs and GPUs made it very obvious. Jensen Huang said this the other day, that if we've trained text and we've trained video, the next evolution of training is movement. And that embodies what a humanoid robot could be. And if you could allow a humanoid robot to replace all of the workers at BMW, or at least for now, fill the labor shortage and eventually replace those workers, for BMW, it's a no-brainer. They're going to be saving hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars per year on labor. And for these robotics companies, it's almost like a SaaS business on steroids, right? Where they're just licensing this thing. They have to make it once. There's some maintenance right there, but it's high level margin. And so you've got a company that could quite literally print trillions of dollars in net income, which doesn't make any sense, but it is possible if it happens. It's the largest TAM ever. Startups have a good chance of failure, but I think this one, might have a shot of taking off.
Or like I said to you earlier, or get acquired by, the next trailblazing company that wants their tech. Yeah. Who knows? I think that you got in so freaking early. You're in this Series B round with some of the most fascinating names that you'd want to see investing alongside you. Microsoft, OpenAI, NVIDIA. ARK got in as well.
ARK got in. Yep. They got the venture fund got in as well. So there's a way to get exposure from that perspective. Yeah. So it is exciting. There's a lot of people that put their hat in the ring, and Brett's a killer, dude. This guy, he probably woke up in the morning, saw the money in his bank account, and is like, all right, time to go to work. He is heads down and he works hard.
Oh man, especially with the growth that they're seeing. I don't know. Very, very excited to see how that goes for you, man. I'm wishing you the absolute best. I think that there's a lot of things that whenever people break down the next big ideas of technology over the next 10 or 20 years, robotics is one that I don't think many people dismiss.
Yeah.
It's the one that just so clearly fits, because in a lot of places, like you're seeing it in Amazon and some of these larger logistics companies, they're using the phase one of these tools already. And they're only going to be expanding as, they look to save costs and expand at faster and faster rates.
And if the street wants AI, the only reason these robots are going to have any purpose is because neural nets are going to be training them to be usable, to be human-like. So, if it's an AI play, and AI, the street still cares about AI in the next 5-10 years, which I think they will, but it's the highest version of what AI could be like, because it's the, tackling one of the biggest problems that we have in society, then, maybe it really, really does become something special. So it'll be cool to see it happen.
Amit, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter. You'll probably put in the description at Amit is investing. Yep. And then YouTube, if you type in Amit and Palantir, it'll pop up, and you can catch my videos.
Yeah, it'll be in the description anyway. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching, and hope you had a good one.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.